Hello, it's Peter from the Crafty Crusaders design team today. And I'm going to do a little bit of a different project with you today. I'm going to be using some Pebeo paints. You can see them at the top of my screen there. And I'm also going to be using Mepxy Markers, and I'm using them in a letter journal. Now, I will talk a little bit more about letter journals shortly, but the first thing I'm going to do is collage down some old book pages that I've got. I've got a book of quotes that I like to use, and I want to have strips of them like that. And I'm going to use some matte medium to collage them down, because it's still a good surface to be able to paint over, and it is a good adhesive, particularly on light surfaces like this. I mean, the letter journals only have photocopier paper, and so they're very thin paper, and matte medium is really good for thin papers and collage items like that, rather than heavy water-based glues. So I'm just going to finish that off and seal it all in and all the edges, and then I'm going to let that dry. So it's dry now, and I'm just going to take off the edges because I want this ragged kind of a ripped edge. And you can see that there's a couple of other pages in the letter journal. This is one I got back that had been lost for almost 12 months. And so it's a little letter journal that goes around as a swap all around the world, and all the swap partners do little bits of art in these journals. And the letter journal project is actually a concept that I created in 2014. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting my Pebeo paints. I've got 3 different types of blue and a little bit of white and some glazing medium. And now I'm just adding some purple into the darker blue, testing it out on my scratch envelope there and seeing whether the colour was suitable. And I'm just going over, you can see it's very, very translucent, and this is what glazing fluid does to the paint, because what I want to do is gradually build up layers and layers, and I'm looking to have the milky blue in the middle and the darker blue and the purple ringing the edges but feathered in, and you'll see me just do this gradually over a period of time, and it will build up a gradual colour that you wouldn't be able to get just by painting. So I'm drying the first coat off because you don't want it to get streaky, so you've got to make sure that it dries off and seals. But these glazes are so thin, and they don't take that long to dry, particularly if you're feathering them out so that they're really thinly spread each time you apply them. So the letter journal project is where we have 4 swap participants, and we have a journal that's made that's very light, so we aim to get it under the 30 gram mark in Australia. For international letters in Australia at the moment, if they're under 50 grams they only cost $2.70 to post out each time, and if they are 51 grams they cost you $7.40. So we try and keep them under 50 grams. We do, and that gives us, and there's no lumpy bumpy, so it gives us a challenge. We get these little journals that fit into a business size envelope, and we just add little bits of art. We tell a little bit about ourselves. We might have collaborative pages where, you know, all 4 swap partners will do something. So you can see me now that I've got the lighter centre, and I'm gradually now increasing the purple, just layer upon layer, and I like the ripped edges, and you can see the page underneath. And periodically I will go in and add the lighter blue and blend it back out. So the point when you're doing transitions like this with glazes is to blend from the outside in and then to blend from the inside out. And that gets your transitions looking nice and smooth and not streaky and not artificially done. They're just gradually build up over time. And this is a fun process. It takes a little bit of time, but not a lot of time, because I wanted to see the book text underneath, and I wanted to be able to still maintain all the colour values that I wanted, going from the deep purpley blue to the light blue in the centre. But then I've made that slightly a little bit purple because I've gradually added a little bit of the darker paints in there. So now I've got another 2 pages, and I've drawn a few little cute little birds, and I'm going to use my Mepxy markers to colour them in, and then a black felt tip pen to doodle over the top. So we're starting in with some Mepxy markers, and I'm just using some pale apricot and a pale lemon, and I'm just blending them in. These are just the initial coats, and I'm just ringing the darker orange, which is a carmine, around the edge, and just hashing in with some finer details. Very cute. So now I'm using some magenta, and I'm going to go over this again with all the same colours now to blend them all in. And I'm using the lightest colour and also the colourless blender to help blend all those colours together. So now I'm going to start with the other little bird, and I'm going to use all different types of purples for this one, and I'm using my brush tip markers and also the fine tip markers here and the chisels all at the same time. I wanted this one to be much more muted, and I still like them with that slightly messy look. So you can see I'm using long broad strokes on my chisel marker. That stops you having a real patchy look on your alcohol markers. I also used a little bit of a flesh colour, and now I'm using my gel roller pen just to outline. I'm going to do just that little bit of doodling on the wing and maybe on part of her body. And I like the idea that she's just looking across. She's got some eyelashes because she's a girl. And now I'm just doing the same thing, so outlining the details on my very content little fat bird. And I'm going to cut them out and glue them onto the page, because I want them to really stand out and be light against that page. And you can see they've got no legs and no tails, and so these things I will doodle just shortly as soon as the glue is dry. You can see that background is dried really lovely now. Just gradual transitions, nothing really harsh in the transition between the light to the dark. So now I'm just doodling on tails and legs, putting extra details in, deciding how much is enough, doing a little bit more doodling of the tail. And then I'm going to pull out a white pen, and I'm going to add some spots and some little white highlights. This is a new Signo gel roller pen, and I just had to make sure that the white gel was rolling out. So I decided to colour in some of the checkers in the wings, just to highlight them a little bit. And these are just fine little details. Now I'm deciding that I'm going to doodle some grass at the bottom of the page, because I wanted the grass to be up around the legs of the birds. And they're just random little squirrels. And there you go, doodle grass. So now I'm getting a black marker that's an India ink marker, and you can smudge it. So I'm smudging a shadow there. Making them look a little bit 3D. So what I'm doing now is I'm cutting out some strips of that same book paper, but because I want to spray them, and I've sprayed them with some acrylic inks. So I made some acrylic ink sprays. So I have used some Schmink inks and some other acrylic artist inks that I've got, and added some water into them and made some sprays, and these dry permanent and they have a lovely soft effect when you spray them. So now I'm just drying them with a heat gun. You can see that they're drying nicely. They're not really vibrant. They turn out a little bit pastel, but where the ink pools and it dries, you get dark spots. So then I decided that I wanted to ink the edges in black because I like to have those edges defined. So I'm just going around with a little bit of archival ink and a blender tool around the edge of all of those strips. And then I found a quote about birds, but not just about birds. It really resonated with me at the moment. I'm taking a couple of classes where some of the participants feel that they don't have the skills to do the class, and that the class is over their heads, and that their work's not as good as others. And I found a quote here that talks a little bit about that, basically saying that use what talents you possess. The woods are full of beautiful birds, and what would it be like if only the most talented birds sang? You wouldn't hear hardly anything. And how would they know? You know, the talent. You don't know until you show it, and you don't get and when you get the encouragement. So I love these little strips, and I always encourage people to use their own handwriting and to mix up capitals and lowercase and to have some fun with it. So I'm just going to glue that in. I'm just using some tacky glue to glue that in. And I like to try and keep these letter journal pages a little bit simple. Very cute.